Last month, a company called Naenka contacted me and asked if I would be interested in reviewing their bone-conducting headphone. I had never heard a bone-conducting headphone and jumped at the chance of trying one. The Naenka headphone is a little bit over $100 on Amazon and is marketed for sports and athletics use. There's nothing audiophile about this headphone, so we can just relax and have a bit of fun with this review. Is the Naenka one among many revolutionary products, or simply a waste of money? The Naenka headphone is rated for IPX8. This means that the headphone should survive most environments. In fact, Naenka says that this headphone can be worn while swimming. The headphone has Bluetooth 5.0. I could not find information about the supported Bluetooth codecs, however. The headphone also has 8 GB of built-in memory, which is not expandable. You can store WAV, FLAC, APE, MP3, and WMA formats. Theoretically, you could store up to 1,500 MP3 tracks on the Naenka. However, there is no companion application, so you can't browse the music you do put on the storage. The music will play in order, and you can skip forward or backward. The headphone has a magnetic charger. This seems to be proprietary. The headphone comes with 16mm dynamic drivers. However, Naenka makes clear that the sound on this headphone is only decent. Clearly, this device is not aimed for the audiophile market. As for build and fit, the Naenka headphone is primarily plastic. Over the past month, I have bent, thrown, twisted, and stretched this headphone beyond what anyone would ever do. The headphone does not have a single scratch on the body. Even when I stretched the neckband, I could not get the headphone to deform. The headphone is, well, not really a headphone. It's kind of a combination of a neckband and a headphone. Essentially, the Naenka will sit on your temples with the drivers slightly forward of your ears. The headband will jut out. The Naenka does apply noticeable pressure to the temples, but it's not really uncomfortable, it's just different. The neckband is not adjustable. This means that the Naenka will have a noticeable gap at the back on average and smaller sized heads. Jumping up and down, running, cycling, and violent shaking of my head have never caused the Naenka to fall off my head. However, this headphone does not work for bench pressing or other weightlifting or other exercises that requires your head to lay on a flat surface. The neckband will hit whatever surface you're laying on, which will cause the device to fall off. Overall, the Naenka is built quite well. I've dunked it in water for 10 minutes at a time, jogged with it, ridden my bike with it, all without issues. I have one major gripe with the build, and that is the fact that it cannot be adjusted. The headband should fit snugly against the back of the head. However, because that headband sticks out, you cannot wear full cover motorcycle helmets. As for comfort, the headphone is, fine. It is far from the most comfortable headphone I have ever worn, and it is also not the worst in this area. It is fairly unnatural to have the sides of my temples directly ahead of my ears being pressed all the time, but since you will be wearing this headphone for active sports, you may not notice the slight discomfort. The Naenka headphone is not an audiophile headphone. Thankfully, Naenka makes it very clear in the marketing that the sound from this device is merely, quote, decent. I don't think I would give it that much credit. I would say that the sound is, at best, decent. The sound signature is, well, hollow. Have you ever heard a hollow-sounding headphone? No? Then try a bone-conducting headphone. You'll get an idea. There is basically no bass. Sub-bass is practically inaudible unless you play at maximum volume. Mid-bass sounds distant. There is very little bass detail. Actually, the bass sounds like a recording of an early 2000s cell phone speaker being played through your laptop speakers. The headphone also vibrates your temples at higher volumes. Recall, I said that to hear sub-bass you have to increase volume. Well, increasing volume also increases the amount of physical reverberation you feel on the side of your head. This is not uncomfortable, it's just really, really weird. The mids are, again, hollow sounding. There is no hint of sibilance, which is a huge saving grace for this headphone. Even on my most sibilant test tracks, the Naenka kept the vocals easy on the ears, no pun intended. Orla Gartland's vocals, for example, had rolled off sibilants and the grain in her songs were smoothed out noticeably. Instruments never sounded correct. They had the wrong timbre, like they were being played through a fish tank. I mean, I could still tell that a guitar was a guitar, a drum, a piano, but none of the notes sounded true. Treble sounded distant and, you guessed it, hollow. Treble instruments seemed rolled off by a significant margin. Brass and horns never had their full energy and often sounded off timbre. When I listened to Scherzo for X-Wings, it reminded me of listening to audio from a bootleg DVD where the recording was taken on a cell phone from between the folds of a jacket. I know, that's pretty specific, isn't it? Let's not get started on detail. There's no point. The Naenka headphone provides only the most obvious detail, and everything else is either missing or very, very difficult to hear. As for soundstage, well, this is the strange part. The Naenka actually has respectable soundstage. It's very similar to that of the HD6XX and the LCD-1. Look, I know all of this sounds very negative, but it really isn't. As I have kept saying throughout this video, the Naenka headphone is not an audiophile-grade piece of gear. It has one job to do and it does it. Audio excellence is definitely not on the list. But we cannot ignore the weirdness of bone conduction audio. It's just unusual, unnatural, and scientifically awesome. With the Naenka playing at maximum volume, I can hear almost everything around me. I can carry on conversations without a problem, but weirder still is that nobody else can hear what I'm hearing. I had a friend wear the Naenka and play music at a loud volume. We stood in a quiet room and waited for a few minutes before I asked if she had actually started using the headphone. She had been listening the whole time and I couldn't hear a single thing. Only when I got within about half a foot did I start hearing faint music. The Naenka headphone is meant for one thing and one thing only, for sports use while still providing you maximum awareness of your surroundings. In that sense, the Naenka does the job perfectly well. This headphone is quite robust and fits securely during strenuous exercise. You can hear what's going on all around you, have a conversation with someone and still hear the music. On top of that, nobody else can hear what you're hearing. The sound quality is way off the mark, like weirdly off. I cannot imagine anyone using this or any bone conducting headphone for audiophile grade listening. I know, I'm sure somebody out there will point me to an IEM that costs several $100s and say bone conducting works great on that Chinese product. Well, fine, whatever, I'm not interested. All I can say is that the Naenka sound signature is lacking, severely. But before we start tarring and feathering this headphone, let's just remember that nobody said this thing sounded good. Naenka said that this headphone sounds decent, and that about sums it up. This brings us to value. I'm sure there's a market for bone-conducting headphones for exercising. Trail runners, swimmers, cyclists, CrossFit fanatics, and everybody other than weightlifters will probably find this headphone useful. If you're concentrating on finishing a race or getting a faster lap or just enjoying the scenic ride, then sound quality may not be on the top of your list. Safety might be, however. Being able to hear when someone is jogging or riding up behind you on a trail or when a car is close is exceedingly useful information for those of us who try to zone out during our jogging or cycling. Earphones block out far too much ambient noise to effectively hear what's going on, and I have had some close calls myself. So basically, what I'm saying is that there is indeed a market for something like the Naenka headphone. But at over $100, this thing is really hard to justify. Bluetooth IEMs are pretty cheap these days, and you can get one with a more natural sound signature for half the price of the Naenka headphone. Yes, you will lose the safety aspect that the Naenka provides, but in exchange, you will get a more comfortable fit and better sound quality. In the alternative, if you ride a bicycle, you can simply use your phone speaker while your phone is attached to the handlebar with a $10 adapter. The sound quality won't be any better than the Naenka headphone, but you'll still get the same type of safety factor that bone-conducting headphones appear to provide. Use while swimming offers its own advantages, however. I don't know of any IEM that is IPX8 rated and that swimmers can use, so maybe for swimmers the Naenka headphone makes sense. I mean, if you're dunking your head underwater, then it doesn't really matter that the sound is hollow. Moreover, if you jog, ride, or stroll in rainy, hot, humid, or rough weather, then the Naenka headphone's robust build is a notable feature. Ultimately, I don't think that bone conducting technology is going to do away with traditional IEMs, headphones, or even speakers on your phone. Is the Naenka value? Look, I struggle to see it. If bone conducting technology was more mature, or if the sound quality was markedly better, then I might be willing to say that $100 is a fair price for the Naenka. But I can't do that. My personal use scenarios never made me think that the Naenka was doing something better than the alternatives. When I jog in the early mornings, I use on-ear headphones. Nobody is around me and I jog in a very safe area, and frankly, I want to zone out. The Naenka let me hear everything all the time, which is not what I wanted. When I ride my bike, I attach my phone and blare my music. Look, if somebody doesn't like hearing Smash Mouth and Michael Jackson as I ride by them, that's just too bad. The Naenka's jutting headband interfered with my helmet strap placement, and I didn't see the benefit of having the Naenka when my phone did the same job with less hassle. Moreover, the odd vibrations that the Naenka creates on my temples does this headphone no favors. If I listen for over an hour, I get used to it, but the sensation never really goes away. I make value judgments on one of two questions. If someone sent me a device, I ask, would I buy it? If I bought the device, I ask, would I keep it? I appreciate Naenka reaching out to me and letting me review their product, but I'm not going to buy it. This is not a rejection of the Naenka specifically. The fact is, I would never buy a bone-conducting headphone, and it does not matter who makes it. I do not think that the Naenka, especially at $100, is value. But once again, think of the target market. As I said before, there is a market. It's simply not me, and very likely not someone who wants sound quality above other considerations. If you're an athlete and you want to listen to music without concern for the sound quality, and you want to hear your surroundings, then the Naenka might be something that interests you. Even if you think that the Naenka offers something useful, $100 seems a bit steep. I think around $75 is the more appropriate price, considering the issues I've already mentioned. Would I call the Naenka a trash headphone? No, not at all. It actually does what Naenka promises, and Naenka is not hyping the sound quality. I just like my music to sound natural, and this headphone doesn't provide that experience. Furthermore, I think there are cheaper alternatives that may solve the problem this headphone attempts to address.